Hello everyone. Today we're diving into a Wild West love story where a strong-willed white woman and a quiet Apache man are forced to pretend to be married just to save themselves. But when that lie starts to feel a little too real, things take a turn no one saw coming. Before we begin this journey, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is where you live. It's always amazing to know we've got friends listening from all over the world. And now, let's begin the story. The wind rolled down from the Bighorn foothills that morning, dry and sharp enough to sting the eyes. Dust clung to every storefront in Twin Forks, turning the town the color of old parchment. Ruby Holloway stood in the doorway of her bakery, Sweet Hollow, arms folded tight, watching two boys chase a chicken across Main Street, and thinking not for the first time that this town was made entirely of nonsense and men with opinions. She'd been up since 4, baking 20 pies and 24 biscuits. But none of it mattered if the lawman's notice nailed to her door meant what it said. All single proprietors must hold family residency to retain land title under the Territorial Settler Act. In plain words, no husband, no land. Ruby tore the paper down, stuffed it in her apron pocket, and muttered, "Family residency, my foot." She had buried her husband 4 years ago and had done just fine since. The oven never complained, the accounts balanced, and no one had tracked mud across her clean floors. She didn't need another man, especially not one with dusty boots and the nerve to tell her how to knead dough. That was exactly the kind of man who appeared in front of her store 10 minutes later. He came riding a roan horse with a coat the color of rust and eyes to match. His hair hung past his shoulders, black as a thundercloud, tied loosely at the nape. His skin held the sun in it, Apache, Ruby guessed, though he wore a plain shirt and boots like any ranch hand. He stopped at her hitching post, swung down, and led the horse to the water trough. Ruby stepped out onto the boardwalk. "That's for customers," she said. "Not every drifter with a thirsty animal." The man looked up at her, calm and unreadable. "Didn't see a sign says horses gotta buy biscuits first." His voice carried that low, steady rhythm of the plains, each word measured. No hurry to please. Ruby bristled. "Well, now you're seeing one." And she reached for the bucket to dump it, but her foot caught the edge of a flour sack by the door. It tipped, burst open, and a white cloud of flour exploded between them. When the dust settled, her blue dress and his dark shirt were both frosted head to toe. The man blinked once, slow. "If you wanted to make me whiter, there are easier ways." Ruby's jaw dropped. "Excuse me?" He brushed flour from his sleeves. "You've done a fair job already." Then, with the faintest twitch at the corner of his mouth, he added, "Guess we're both half-baked now." Laughter erupted from a few cowhands across the street. Ruby felt heat rise to her cheeks. You arrogant." "Name's Kohana," he said, tightening his saddle strap. "Means swift, not that you asked." "I didn't," she snapped. "Good. Saves time." He swung back onto his horse, and before she could think of a retort sharp enough to draw blood, he was already halfway down the street. Ruby stomped back inside, furious, floured, and against her better judgment, just a little intrigued. That afternoon, she found herself in the office of Mr. Jenkins, the town's only lawyer, and, by most accounts, its most talkative man. He leaned back in his chair, chewing the stub of an unlit cigar. "So let me get this straight," Jenkins said. "The county says if you ain't got a husband by the end of the month, you lose the deed to the bakery." "That's the gist of it," Ruby replied. "And I'm not marrying anyone just to keep a building." "Well, you might not have to marry anyone, strictly speaking." Jenkins rummaged through his desk until he found a folder thick with papers. "Seems you're not the only one in a bind." He slid a form toward her. "This here fella, Kohana, Something Apache half-breed. Runs the forge outside town. He can't get his license renewed without a family sponsor. Territorial rule against unaccompanied Indians. Don't look at me, I didn't write it. Ruby froze mid-breath. Kohana? Yeah, know him? She folded her arms. We've met, briefly. He's insufferable. Well, Jenkins said, grinning like a coyote. Sounds like the start of a beautiful partnership. You two sign a marriage contract, purely business. 6 months, everybody keeps what's theirs. You get your deed. He gets his license. Ruby stared at him. That's absurd. Maybe, but it's legal. And given the alternatives, Jenkins tapped the notice on his desk. I'd say it's cheaper than starting over. She should have walked out. She really should have. But the thought of losing her bakery, the only thing she'd built with her own hands, sat heavy in her chest. What's in this contract? She asked warily. Oh, the usual. Mutual residence, joint property for 6 months, and I can add a few personal clauses if you like. Keeps things civilized. Half an hour later, the office door opened again, and Kohana walked in, hat low, expression unreadable. The sight of him made Ruby's pulse kick, though she refused to admit it. Mr. Jenkins said you had an offer, he said. I have a disaster, Ruby muttered. You're just part of it. Jenkins clapped his hands. Perfect. You two already sound married. He read the terms aloud. 6-month duration. No physical obligations. No public scandal. Shared address. Equal property rights. Ruby leaned over the page, grabbed the pen, and scribbled an addition. Clause 4. No